Hey, what's going on, folk? Welcome back. So this is part 3. In this part, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? This is where I make my decision that, number one, Christianity is a man-made religion, as well as all other religions, I'm now convinced. And it led to me being religion free, the way I am right now. And at the end of the video, I'll give you a synopsis of how I feel, what's going on in my brain. So this is part 3 of my short series of or depicting my journey from Christian of over about 10, 13 years to non-believer. What would make someone who, at the sound of certain songs and just looking at nature, what would make a tear come to the eyes of the believer like myself? Believe with everything that I thought I had to where I am right now. What would take me from falling in love with Jesus, falling in love with Jesus? Those who know that song, was the best thing I've ever done. What would take me from there to, I am not convinced that a God or a deity even exists? What would take me from such passion through and by faith to confidence in where I stand right now, that there is no evidence that what I once believed is even true? What happened to me? So this is part 3 of my journey from believer or Christian to non-believer. Am I atheist? When I look at what I understand about atheism and agnostic, the agnostic view, atheism, if I'm correct, is basically a position that simply says, I am not convinced by the evidence or lack thereof presented thus far regarding a deity. I'm not denying that a deity does not exist, but I'm just not convinced that one does exist. And then from what I understand about agnosticism is like there could be a God. It almost sounds the same to me. I don't know. But I haven't titled myself, but I am not convinced that at this point in time, with the technology that we have, with the scientific or the scientific methods that we use to determine truth, to falsify a specific claim, there's no evidence that a God that exists outside of reality yet interacts with reality exists. I don't see the evidence. If you have that evidence, I would love to see it, because I, just like you, want it to be true that there is this loving parent or creator, if you will, that cares about us. It's hard to see it when you think about babies born, with double genitalia, a female genitalia and male genitalia, deformed, born blind, just sickness, disease, death, and all that you see in the world. It's very difficult to say, but you know what? There is this divine being that loves us. This is something that you have to say by faith, which I'll get into in a minute. The rubber met the road when I decided to investigate how the Bible was put together. I'm not going to run through my research, because that's not my responsibility for you. The individual seeker is your responsibility to conduct research, to look at all the evidence presented, and then come to a logical conclusion on your own. But in examining how the Bible is constructed, and finding out events like the Council of Nicaea, and understanding the Roman Catholic Church and their contribution to dogma and a lot of doctrine that Christians believe today, and you have no idea that it was made up, that we do not know conclusively concerning the authors of the Bible. Though, let's say, the New Testament says Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as far as the Gospels is concerned, there is zero evidence that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote anything. We don't know. We have no original manuscripts. Do you know that? That is huge, because if we're talking about the word of God that says, though heaven and earth shall pass away, my word shall abide forever, yet this word, which is ineffective and does not accomplish what it's supposed to accomplish, there's zero evidence to support that. If for some reason this word cannot be preserved, there's zero original manuscripts. And yes, I know about the Dead Sea Scrolls concerning parts of the book of Isaiah, which also, once again, accomplishes nothing and proves nothing in regard to a virgin giving birth to God, who ultimately, through that process, and you believing in that process by faith, redeem mankind unto himself. So after looking at how the Bible was constructed and then examining the history of religion itself, I would encourage anybody out there who is seeking or on the fence, or even if you are born again, fire baptized believer like I was, laying hands on the sick in the name of Jesus, you need to step out of your comfort zone and examine world religions. Study religion. You will find that it has its origin in man's curiosity and ignorance. That as far back as we can go, we find religious beliefs, tales, fables, legends that men tend to make up when they look up and they can't explain what they see. When you look at the Genesis story of creation, if you look at it for what it's worth, it's almost like the description was, the earth or the world inside of one of those globes, that you would shake up and then you have snow and stuff floating around in it around Christmas time. Like the world was like this globe. The earth, was a globe. And we know that that's not true. And not only a globe or having a dome is what I'm talking about, having a dome, like almost like this glass ceiling that covers. But the Bible actually talks about a flat earth, the four corners of the earth. And we know beyond reasonable doubt that this earth is not a square or rectangular. It is a sphere. It's circular. We know this now. The sun, according to the Bible, talks about the rising and setting of the same. Well, the sun doesn't rise or set. It was once believed that the sun revolved around the earth, but now we know that the earth revolves around the sun. When looking at the biblical claims and comparing those biblical claims to reality as we know it, we find that the Bible cannot be, in fact, the inspired word of God or any deity, because it is filled with error, scientific or pseudoscience claims that science has already provided the answer to. Let's talk about how, for example, humans, how we came about and how we evolved over time. Right now, the best explanation that we have is through the evolution, as we call it, the evolution theory. And we're not saying that this is definitely 100% totally true, because now you're talking about absolute truth, which is another story. What is absolute truth? Who can give an absolute truth, right? Haven't met anybody who can do such a thing. However, what science does is it investigates theories and claims, and it's curious, and it seeks to falsify, which is awesome, because I've never in my history of Christianity, Christendom, if you will, came upon a pastor, preacher, teachers who in fact taught wrong and then recanted what they said and acknowledged their wrong and said, I was wrong. And let me tell you why you don't find that. because these same people claim that it's God's spirit speaking through them. So if in fact they are wrong, that means God must be wrong. So that's just another example of how man will attempt to get you to believe that some God or some entity is speaking through them and telling them what to tell you. Do your own research. So it broke the camel's back for me. That straw was finally understanding that the Bible was constructed, that there were books that were left out, books that were included, a lot of editing and adding and subtracting and just so many different things with this book. But here is my position. I do not believe that snakes can talk and that a serpent ever spoke. I do not believe in magical trees. I do not believe that a man was formed from the dust of the ground, and then one of his ribs, God formed a woman out of, and then placed that magical tree in the midst of the garden and told him that. I don't believe the story at all. I do not believe that a bush can burn yet not be consumed. I do not believe that men can go into a fiery furnace, turned all the way up, and come out not even their clothes being singed. I do not believe that a man can live in the belly of a whale for 3 days. I do not believe that men can walk on water, i.e. Peter or Jesus, that men can actually walk on water, defying the laws of gravity or physics. I do not believe that manna, some strange food, came down from heaven and people were eating. I do not believe that 5,000 people were fed with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. I do not believe that men can fly into the sky, ascend and descend. Enoch was translated. I do not believe that men can disappear before your naked eyes and there's no illusion at play. I do not believe in spirits floating around and can float through the TV and ghosts and all of those different things. I do not believe any of this because there is zero evidence. And I want to tell you this. This is we get into the straw that breaks the camel's back. Your gospel, Christians, just like I used to preach, says that if you believe that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever should believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you believe that, then you believe all of those things that I just said. I do not believe. You cannot believe in part. You have to believe that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And the same God of the Old Testament is the God of the New Testament. Stop making excuses. I don't believe any of it, but I'm just giving you your book. If you do not believe in talking snakes, dragons, unicorns, men flying, walking on water, feeding 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, if you don't believe this, then you will burn for an eternity. Now, I don't know if you ever got popped by some oil at any point in time. At any point in time, if you've ever gotten popped by grease. I'm sure some of you know what heat feels like upon the skin, and it burns and it hurts. Imagine burning and hurting like that forever, ever, only because you decided to use the brain that your biblical God gave you and the logic that your biblical God gave you. Because you're guilty of using that mind, are in danger of burning forever. And here's another thing. Let's go back again. If a deity is real, in the context in which we created God, because man did create God. God is a concept that we created out of our ignorance and out of our lack of understanding and attempting to explain the unexplainable, so it seems, at this time. So we come up with God. There have been many gods over many millennia, and there are still many gods, believing in many gods, people. So an all-knowing, omniscient God is not able to articulate his message clearly. He wants to play hide and seek. And then if you seek and come across the wrong religion and think you found him, wrong one, you're going to hell. What kind of game is that? Will you sit back and you allow all of the craziest things, possible to affect the people that you say that you love according to these scriptures, which you don't find a whole lot of love. You find more people talk about love than love from God is actually displayed in the scriptures, because there's more anger and jealousy and punitive behavior going forth out of the God of the Bible's mind, because whenever you create a thing and then want to punish a thing for malfunctioning or not performing the way you felt that it was supposed to perform, is wicked in and of itself. How can I, as a software developer, develop a piece of software that has a virus and then blame the software when I'm the one who developed it? Stop running away from those type of questions. You have to ask yourself them type of questions. And I am convinced that the reason why people run from those type of questions and they make excuses for their God is because they're terrified. Excuse me, I think I'm gonna sneeze. They're terrified of the idea that what they believe all this time is not true. And then if what they believe is not true, oh my goodness, my grandma's not true, mother, father, no one else, they're all wrong. Now, who do I pray to? Where am I going to go when I die? So your religion is fear-based. Christianity is fear-based. It's about putting a gun to somebody's head, God holding the gun saying, you believe. If you do not believe, I'm pulling the trigger, and it's eternal, the price that you're about to pay. So where am I now? How do I feel now? Outstanding. I'm free. It feels so good to be able to read material and study this world that we live in, to study the mind. It's wonderful. What we used to attribute to the power of God in church, the same activities you find taking place at a Beyonce concert. There's crying, there's running, there's jumping, there's fainting, there's goosebumps. There is a feeling of a connection with this woman. That is because of how the brain works. And we are pattern-seeking creatures, which, you know, you can look up in the clouds and see a face, right? You can make a face out of anything, you know. You got people right now, you know, claiming that Jesus's face is showing up on a piece of toast, and you find statues with a tear coming down. All this just stupid stuff that people attempt to use as proof that their God is real. It's really simple. If a God desires to show itself real, then that God or deity knows what it takes and will do it, because they are all wise. And if they're all loving, hey, parents out there, which one of you, if your child does everything that they tell you, if they are the model children, or the model child out of all of your children, or the model child of children in their neighborhood or school, would you strike them with a sickness? And let's say they were older and they had children. Would you kill their children? Would you rip apart their business and everything that they have going because you love them so much? No. You would call me a wicked father if I treated my child the way your God in the Bible treats his children when you look at the Bible. So the straw that broke the camel's back was realizing that the Bible, in its 66 books and the other absent ones like Maccabees and Apocalypse of Peter and stuff like that, all are man-made. And I'm so happy because I no longer have the fear of hell. And so if you want to know the benefits of living your life in reality, for those who think that Christianity is a moral compass and without it we will be immoral, I will call your attention to do a Google search right now. Top 10 safest places to live on earth. And you're going to find that each one of these countries or locations are secular. They are not religious. So look at, after you do that, now find the most dangerous places to live on earth. And I guarantee you that each one of them will have some type of religious belief that they claim. And it is at the root of why they behave the way that they do. Bombers, suicide bombers, do not blow themselves up in the name of nothing. They blow themselves up, and they will blow you up in the name of a God. You see? I'm going to do my next video addressing faith, because faith is dangerous, it's horrible, and it is not, in the words of Matt Dillahunty, appreciate you, man. Faith is not a reliable pathway to truth. Totally true. Because if that were true, then, for example, the Middle East right now in turmoil, war, back and forth, because of a claim in the Old Testament of God giving Israel land, giving the children of Israel a specific parcel of land. They still fight today in the name of religion. States like Georgia, who just passed the new abortion law that says basically after about, I guess it's 6 weeks or something like that, you cannot abort, even if you were raped. You have to file a police report that says you were raped. Now, you know that's a problem because a lot of rape victims do not report their crimes for various legitimate reasons. They don't report the crimes against them. So because of religion, legislation goes forth with those religions or that religious ideology or view in mind. And so that's my problem. Believe what you want, but I have a problem when you push your belief off on me and my children and society where laws are now made based upon that religion. I have a lot to talk about because I went through almost 15 years of not talking about it, holding it in like a lot of you out there that are just sitting up in church, and you're going to get tired. You're going to get tired of the same bull crap. The songs are going to get old, and you're going to be like, you're going to start examining your songs and comparing them to real life. Like, this is some bull. This is some BS to the umpteenth degree. And that is my hope for you. I didn't know the video was going to go over 20 minutes, but I'm passionate about this. I'm loving life. There is no fear of death. You know why? Because I have evidence to believe that I will not know what's going to happen to me when I die, that I'll be totally oblivious to anything. And I based this off of this piece of reality. I based that type of belief off of this piece of reality. This is my evidence. And I'm gonna ask you a question. Let me get close. All right, here's my question. Where were you, according to your remembrance? Where were you before you were born? Think about it. Can you remember? What were you doing? Were you like the saints in the book of Revelation crying to God, oh, when you gonna avenge our blood? And the Bible says he gave them robes. Wow, robes in heaven. You get Versace in heaven, or wherever they at. They still worried about what's going on or what happened to them. It's crazy. But do you remember like that? No. I have no remembrance of where I was, what I was doing, who I was, if I existed or whatever, before I was born. I have no remembrance. I can only think back to certain images of when I was really little. That's it. So when I'm gone, I won't be concerned about the things of this world. So what does living in reality, having a humanistic view of reality, what does that do for an individual as far as his or her actions are concerned? Well, what it does for me, it brings home the reality that I will not live forever. That this life is all that I have right now that I know about. So what do I do about this life right now? So now life becomes more meaningful because I'm not doing things in hopes of receiving something in an afterlife. It'd be great. I really hope that there is an afterlife, in that there is, maybe another go at this life. Now do it all over different with the knowledge that you have now. Wouldn't that be great? Imagine living your life again, but now you have a remembrance of the mistakes you made in the past. We can, we can dream and wonder all day long. But what I do know is that I cannot remember where I was before I was born. Therefore, I believe that there's it's reasonable to believe that I will not remember what happens after death. So that brings me comfort and brings me focus in this life right now. So I'm sorry for the 24 minutes. This is Sean Scott. Leave some questions and comments. We're going to keep this thing going. And we're going to have a discussion because I want to see people free. I don't have a church for you to go to. I don't have a club for you to join. I'm just sharing my story in hopes that somebody out there know what I'm talking about and you're dealing with the same issues. And I want to see you free. I don't want to see you scared that your children are going to go to hell. And what does religion have against women? My God, you guys, it surprises me that you guys are not falling away from religion like flies to poison, because religion really dogs you guys out. You guys are like, you know, second-class citizens don't really exist, can't really have or do anything without the permission of men. Why do you love religion so much when it hates you? Obviously. All right, so Sean Scott, I hope I did not offend anybody. I hope that you can see that it's not a desire of mine to defend anybody. And if it seems like I'm poking at your religion, it is because, honestly, it's laughable to me now. When I used to be in fear and cry when I used to read the scriptures before, now I look and, you know, and the serpent said unto the woman, what? You know, automatically, this is Lord of the Rings or something. That's how it looks to me now. It's amazing, but I'm free. Peace.